Adam Mendoza always believed that art had a kind of magic to it. It could transform public space and transport a viewer to a familiar, comforting place or to some new, alien feeling. Of course, until recently, he never would have guessed that the graffiti coating half the walls in the city literally contained magic. But life is full of surprises. As led on the cleaning crew for Cedar Falls' new anti-graffiti initiative, Adam had a front row seat to the bewildering power hidden in every bright stroke of paint. The job made sense on the surface. Tidy up the city's walls, remove vulgar tags and scrawled symbols. The city paid decently for the labor, especially for those with a knack for cleaning methods. In truth, these methods were quietly arcane. Adam's team was small, consisting of just 4. Adam, the stoic but studious foreman. Ileana, a spunky ex-art student who repurposed her knowledge in curious ways. Marcus, an older man who rarely spoke about his training but possessed arcane runic tattoos up both arms. And Paige, the newest recruit, who they took on mainly because she seemed somehow partially attuned to magic without ever having studied it. They were each gifted in subtle ways. Adam could see beyond the mundane layers of paint, discerning glyphs and illusions hidden in swirling lines. Ileana employed pressure washers enhanced with a small crystal contraption that dissolved stubborn enchantments. Marcus meticulously etched protective sigils into the cleaning chemical tanks to ensure no unleashed energies harmed them. Paige mostly stood back and watched for faint flickers, occasionally pointing out invisible wards that the others might miss. Supernatural or not, it was a job like any other. Labor, get rid of the paint, collect a paycheck. But 3 months into the contract, the calls started pouring in from a long-abandoned district. Those old warehouse walls had always been dreaded territory for the city's graffiti artists. Taggers placed cryptic designs and swirling letterwork that spelled out nonsense. Only now the city demanded it be cleaned up for the warehouse's slated demolition. The order was rushed. The crew was to head there and remove everything fast. Adam's team arrived early on a drab Tuesday morning. The industrial yard stank of rotting leaves and mildew trapped by corrugated walls. Tall partitions surrounded the property, each covered in at least half a dozen multi-layered tags. While the rest of the crew unloaded their supplies, Adam walked the perimeter to get a sense of the place. He paused at a mural so massive it dominated an entire steel facade. Swathes of black paint merged with shimmering streaks of gold. A large stylized symbol, shaped almost like a caged spiral, shimmered whenever the sun's rays caught it. His eyes narrowed. The paint in that section was fresh. That set off alarm bells. This site was supposed to have been abandoned for years. One by one, the others joined him. Ileana lifted her goggles from her neck, hooking them around her ears. The specialized lenses glowed faintly, letting her see magical frequencies normally hidden from the naked eye. She sucked in a sharp breath. "Adam," she said, voice trembling with excitement and a hint of fear. "These lines, they're not just layered, they're bridging something. Not sure how, but it's big." Marcus knelt, running a calloused hand along the base of the wall. The runes etched on his own forearms seemed to throb with an inaudible pulse. "I can feel it too," he muttered. "We'll need extra caution." Paige looked at them in confusion. "Didn't we do that big courtyard across from the library last week? Nothing happened. This is just a bigger wall, right?" "It's different," Adam said quietly. He pressed his fingertips against the black paint. Immediately a tingling sensation coursed through his hand, almost like static electricity. He pulled back. "There's an active enchantment in this graffiti." "Oh, so you—" Paige started, but stopped as Adam brushed aside his momentary caution, reaching back and applying a cleansing mixture on a small corner of the painted swirl. The paint sizzled, coughed out thin ribbons of dark smoke, and flaked away in a circular spot. Ileana aimed her pressurized wand at it, assisting. The hiss of dissolving paint was sharper than usual, and the air temperature rose noticeably, forming little swirling eddies of wind around the exposed surface. What they saw beneath the paint froze them all in place. Instead of the normal chipped plaster or corroded metal, the wall underneath rippled with a faint greenish glow. The surface seemed to undulate, not quite liquid but not entirely solid either. It looked like an opaque glass window lit from behind by leftover lightning. "Well," Adam said softly, "that is definitely not normal." Ileana took a slow step back. "Guys, if we keep cleaning, we may open whatever's on the other side." Paige swallowed. "Open? Like a door?" "Let's not panic," Marcus said, with a voice far calmer than the situation warranted. "We have the means to seal it if necessary, but if the city wants this graffiti gone, we have to proceed." "Adam, what's the plan?" Adam considered. "We do our job. Let's remove the paint carefully in case something's behind it. We monitor for magical surges. If things get dicey, we seal it with runes. Understood?" Everyone nodded, exchanging glances that ranged from wide-eyed concern, Paige, to steady readiness, Marcus. They got to it. Spray by spray, brush by brush, they peeled away the graffiti. Each strip of paint taken revealed more of that luminescent, liquid-like plane. Here and there, the swirl of color under the black paint coiled, like swirling water. But to their surprise, nothing jumped out from behind it. It simply glimmered, shimmering with quiet energy. When they finished the first mural, the entire lower section of the wall now pulsed with that same translucent glow. The swirl was maybe 7 feet high, the edges flickering in an irregular oval shape. Ileana aimed her lens at the center. "I see shapes," she whispered. "Like behind it. Could be an enclosed space. Possibly a corridor." Adam exhaled. "Time for Plan B. We call in the city's arcane consultant. This is above our pay grade." He reached for his cell phone, stepping away. He ducked around the corner to contact the city's specialized magical department, but after a few tries he realized there was no reception. He frowned. "Strange," he told the others. "No signal. Let's see if we can get some vantage from a higher spot." They went deeper onto the property, searching for a stairway or scaffolding they could climb to get enough reception. Now that the team was away from the mural, they started spotting more graffiti hidden behind crates and collapsed fences. All the designs were similarly elaborate and fresh. They formed a kind of path that led to the center of the old yard. There, a half-collapsed building rose like a giant tomb. Paige gestured at the building's side. "I'm seeing the same black streaks. Another big mural over there." They rounded the corner and arrived at an even larger piece hammered into the cinder block shell of the building. This design was chaotic, swirling with jagged lines that crossed at improbable angles, layering bold neon colors in an unreadable tapestry. The black swirl from the previous mural was repeated here, but 5 times larger, forming a vortex shape at the center. Where the old sign might have once read, "Employees Only," it was drowned by the graffiti's swirling mass. A trickle of dread rose in Adam's stomach. "It's as if these portals connect to one another," he speculated. "No telling how many more we'll find." They set up hoses, spraying test patches of the cleaning solution. The building rumbled like a living thing. Paige scurried back a few steps, fear plain on her face. Ileana, determined, kept her wand angled carefully. Marcus chanted under his breath, the runes on his arms now faintly glowing. Adam, the swirl of fear in his gut intensifying, pressed on. "Don't push too fast," he instructed. "A little at a time." Little by little, more swirling lines were removed and paint sizzled away, revealing swirling translucent space beneath, and just like before, it glowed green and faintly glimmered with movement beyond it. But this time, something moved back. All 4 froze as a flicker of shadow swam across the other side. Then it disappeared. "Holy, did you see that?" Paige squeaked, a tremor in his voice. "Yes," Marcus murmured, steel in his voice. "We saw." Adam felt a ripple of primal alarm. Something about the shape seemed not quite human, more elongated, with limbs that bent in unsettling ways. Yet it made no attempt to lunge through. For the next hour, the crew persisted, carefully removing the layers of paint. Then, at last, after clearing most of the swirling black lines from the building facade, the entire wall shimmered from ground to roof, revealing what now appeared to be a freestanding gateway. Although the illusions of cracked cinder block remained at the building's edges, an archway of swirling energy dominated the center. Wispy shapes occasionally flitted by, the same shadowy presence they'd seen earlier. "It's definitely open," Marcus said, stepping away slowly. "Several of these walls must lead to the same plane, or planes, linked together." "But who put them there?" Ileana questioned. "Who's behind all this graffiti? It's not just random kids defacing property." No one had a good answer. They fanned out in search of clues, but found none, only empty paint cans, old stencils, and half-drawn runes. A creeping feeling of unease gnawed at Adam. They were stumbling into something big, and they had no backup. He decided they needed to regroup, plan, and maybe see if any of them could get to an area with phone reception. Amid the near silence of the yard, a sudden shrill cry echoed from behind a rusted dumpster. The group bolted toward the sound, hearts pounding. They found Paige crouched a few feet away from another newly discovered mural. She pointed, wide-eyed. Right there, near the ground, was an opening in the shape of a small circle, just big enough to see through. She had partially wiped away some graffiti by accident while scanning for more tags. Through that circular gap, they glimpsed swirling lights and a watery horizon. Then the swirl flickered, intensifying with each second. Adam stood behind Paige, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. He was about to ask if she was all right when a rift of shimmering green parted the metal wall. Out stepped a figure. A tall, angular being with pale grey skin, wearing a ragged black robe. Its elongated fingers twitched in nervous energy. Ileana jerked backward. Marcus silently readied a protective charm. Adam, swallowing his alarm, raised one hand in a gesture of non-aggression. "Hello," he started, voice a bit shaky. "We're just cleaning the walls. We mean no harm." The being regarded them with eerie golden eyes. Finally, it spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through an abandoned building. "You are not the artists. Why do you remove the wards?" No one answered immediately. The being's command of English was unexpected. Marcus cleared his throat. "We were hired to get rid of the graffiti. We didn't know it was, well, magical. We didn't realize these walls were gates." The being made a sound halfway between a sigh and a hiss. "Fools, your ignorance threatens the barrier that separates our realms. These wards are not mere graffiti. They are waypoints, crucial to travel between worlds." Adam steadied himself. "Is that a problem? People in our realm don't know it exists. They wouldn't intentionally harm it." The robed figure's eyes gleamed, flicking from Marcus's tattoos to Ileana's lens and lingering on Paige's trembling stance. "I sense raw potential among you. There is more to this place than you understand. Our magic has bled into your world for decades, traveling from one hidden mural to the next, but your city's new cleaning initiative," the figure paused, as though struggling with the term. "It threatens to sever these portals prematurely. They have not been stabilized from our side." A hush fell. The figure's golden gaze roamed further, scanning the yard. "Yet the wards are partially undone already. If you do not restore them or seal them properly, my kin may cross unbidden. Others far more dangerous than I." "So what do we do?" Paige asked, voice quavering. "You want us to restore it all?" "Either restore it or complete the closure with proper rituals," said the figure. "Graffiti is the medium, but arcane filaments hold it together. You must choose wisely." Ileana let out a faint laugh laced with desperation. "We're just a cleaning crew. We know some protective runes, sure, but not how to fix dimensional gates." Marcus lowered his head, deep in thought. "Perhaps we can adapt. The city entrusted us with advanced arcane solvents for a reason. If we can tweak the formula, Overlay new sigils on the areas we've already cleaned. Maybe we can force these gates to shut in a stable manner." The robed being's voice cooled. "Would you truly seal them? You do not wish to see what lies beyond?" Adam locked eyes with the being. Something in him churned with curiosity. Another realm? Magical vistas? He tried to steady his sense of responsibility. People's lives could be at risk if malevolent entities poured through. We were hired to remove the tags. The city never said anything about controlling interdimensional travel, but yes, we might forcibly seal them if that's the safest option. The being's features softened in what might have been resignation. "Then do it swiftly. Unauthorized travelers may already be searching for an opening. I would prefer not to meet them in your territory." With that, the figure stepped back through the swirling circle. It waved a hand, causing the gap to haze over once more, leaving nothing but the faint glow behind the partially cleaned graffiti. The yard fell silent again. Adam rubbed his temples. "All right, new plan. We can't just keep power washing everything blindly. We have to carefully close each portal, create a protective barrier, then do the next one." Marcus nodded. "I can do the incantations. I'll inscribe the correct runes on the surfaces after we remove the paint. That should anchor them shut. But we have to do it systematically," Ileana added. "And we might want to handle the big one last. It's probably the primary gateway." They set to work. The process was laborious, slow, nerve-wracking. Every swirl of graffiti peeled away to reveal shining gateways that thrummed with hidden life. Marcus meticulously pressed runic stamps into the now exposed surfaces, muttering incantations that bound the planes back together. Paige discovered a surprising ability. She could sense weakness in the magical structure before it ruptured, guiding him on exactly where to place the stabilizing symbols. Bit by bit, they sealed each gateway, the swirling glow coalescing into dull, inert metal. However, sealing came with an unexpected complication. After each closure, a small, concussive wave of magic rippled outward. Minor at first, these pulses gave them headaches and dizzy spells, but with every additional seal, the blasts grew in intensity. Warping the air and hurling metallic scraps around the yard, Ileana nearly took a flying piece of debris to the face before Marcus conjured a barrier. Even with that, they were left rattled, sweat dripping down their foreheads. By early afternoon, they had sealed half a dozen distinct portals. The yard seemed calmer, as if the entire environment was breathing a little easier. They took a quick break by some stacked pallets, rationing out water and sandwiches. Paige's hands shook from adrenaline. Ileana absent-mindedly flicked the goggles up and down her forehead, checking the yard for any new flares of magic. Adam sighed. "We should finish with that big mural on the building. We know it's the largest gateway. It probably has a more robust power source on the other side." "Get in, seal it, and get out," Marcus confirmed. "Then we call the Department of Magical Safety. They'll want a full report." As they gathered their supplies, Ileana stopped short. "Wait," she said, flicking her goggles down. "I see a new swirl of magic right behind the building. I think a new portal's being opened." They rushed there, hearts pounding. Indeed, a scroll of black paint was forming on the wall, the lines tracing themselves, as if an invisible artist was at work. The graffiti seemed to appear on its own, twisting into a menacing design with crooked angles. A faint rasping noise like chalk on a blackboard floated on the breeze. "Someone's opening a new gate from the other side," Ileana whispered. "They're painting from beyond the veil." "Then we move now," Adam said. Marcus started reciting a chant under his breath, the runic lines on his forearms shimmering. Ileana readied her pressurized wand, jammed full of the magical solvent. Paige positioned small wards along the ground to create a ring of protection around them. Adam advanced first, scanning for the best spot to apply the solvent and break the forming gateway. A swirl of black paint sprawled into the shape of a twisted figure with a wide grin. He tried not to shudder at the terrifying stylized face. With careful precision, Ileana unleashed a tight burst of cleaning fluid onto the lines. The paint bubbled, curling up from the wall. A harsh, angry shriek emanated from the half-formed portal, the shape contorted, and a talon-like limb tried to push through. Marcus bellowed a final phrase. His arms lit up like neon lines, launching a wave of runic energy across the wall. The swirling lines fizzled, then collapsed back in on themselves, leaving only a dull black smear behind. The shock wave that followed was the strongest yet. Adam felt the ground tilt beneath his feet. He stumbled, barely staying upright, broken pieces of concrete scattered at them like pellets. Paige was knocked off her feet. She landed next to a corroded pipe, letting out a startled cry. Smoke seeped from the now sealed patch of graffiti, and the air reeked of ozone. Marcus, panting, propped himself on a knee. We have to do that big mural now, or we risk more intrusions. Although they were exhausted, time was pressing. They hurried around to the front of the building, standing before the massive swirling design. At this point, a good portion of it was uncovered, revealing that luminous dimension beyond. Dark shapes flitted about inside, scuttling across the swirling green backdrop. Adam's gaze traveled upward. It's huge. This ceiling will be intense. Let's do it in sections, Ileana recommended. We'll dissolve the paint from the top down. Marcus can apply runes as we go. Paige can keep track of any new infiltration attempts. They split tasks. Using harnesses and old scaffolding, Adam and Ileana climbed up to the upper reaches of the mural. Spray by careful spray, they dissolved the swirling black paint, exposing more and more of the gateway. Marcus stood at ground level, chanting, pressing glowing sigils into place wherever the metal surface was laid bare. Paige circled around, retouching wards that threatened to flicker out from overuse. At around halfway done, a shape emerged from the swirling dimension. It was bigger than the robed figure from earlier, with gnarled limbs and a body covered in spines. It had an elongated face with brilliantly gleaming eyes. It thrust a clawed hand through, shrieking in an unrecognizable dialect. Ileana nearly lost her grip on the scaffolding as she wrestled the wand's nozzle, drenching the intruder in solvent. The creature shrieked louder, black paint sizzling off its arm. For a moment it dangled there, half in and half out of the portal. "That's not good," Adam shouted over the cacophony. "Marcus!" From below, Marcus conjured a fierce channel of runic force that crackled upward along the building's facade. The creature's form flickered, turning translucent, then it vanished, back into the swirl with a piercing cry. Immediately, Marcus pressed a new sigil into the exposed metal, sealing that portion of the gate. Smoke curled from the scorching glyph. They repeated the process, inch by inch. Each time, more swirling lines were removed. Fresh thralls from the other side tried to breach the barrier. Some were vaguely humanoid, others monstrous, but all were forced back by the combined onslaught of arcane solvents and Marcus's chance. Eventually, battered and exhausted, the crew scrubbed away the last swirl. The entire length of the building shimmered with bright green. For a brief instant, the gateway stood fully open, revealing a corridor of swirling stars and bending geometry behind it. Marcus's final incantation boomed across the yard like thunder. He slammed his glowing palms into the metal, the runes on his arms burning brilliant white. The shimmer collapsed inward, swirling faster and faster until, with a final flash of green light, it disappeared. The building's wall was left behind, pockmarked and stained, but once again mundane. Silence spread across the old yard like a heavy shroud. One by one they gathered near the front of the building, heads spinning from the effort. Marcus's arms still faintly glowed, the leftover energy draining away slowly. Ileana slid to the ground, her back against some crates, goggles askew on her forehead. Paige was trembling, but in one piece. Adam was covered in soot, paint flakes and sweat. They exchanged weary looks, hearts pounding. No more swirling lines, no more shimmering planes of existence. They had sealed them all. Adam finally broke the quiet, voice hoarse. "We should try calling the authorities again." With the wave of magical interference gone, phone reception returned. Adam managed to contact the city's arcane safety office, who promptly dispatched an investigative team of ward specialists and magical enforcers. They arrived in black vans, stepping out with official sigils on their uniforms. Men and women quickly fanned out, scanning the yard with specialized equipment, taking readings from the sealed portals, amazed at the scale of what had transpired. Initially, the city authorities balked at how the graffiti had concealed these clandestine thresholds, but the evidence was undeniable. They commended the crew for responding appropriately and for preventing a potential dimensional incursion. Marcus spoke quietly with the lead arcane officer, explaining each seal's method. Paige gave a short, stammering account of the terrifying moment she looked directly through a half-formed portal. Ileana explained how the lens helped them see hidden lines. Adam simply answered questions about his earliest suspicions. When the official statements were done and the yard was secured, it was nearing sunset. The agent in charge, an older woman with a hawk-like gaze, saluted them. "You four did remarkable work under impossible circumstances. I'm sure the city manager will have more to say, but for now, we'll take over the site." "You've done enough." Adam nodded, relieved. He and the others returned to their van, loaded with empty solvent canisters and chipped brushes. They settled inside, the exhaustion starting to sink into their bones. No one spoke much on the drive to the city offices. Words felt inadequate for the day's events. When they arrived, they were ushered into a small conference room. The city manager was waiting, an imposing man with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He'd reviewed the preliminary reports. "You've done Cedar Falls a real service," he said. "I can't say we ever expected or wanted a scenario like this, but you handled it. We'll be issuing you a hazard bonus along with extended city contracts, if you're interested." Adam managed a small nod. "We appreciate it," he said. "Are you planning to continue the cleanup initiative?" The manager sighed. "We might put it on hold temporarily. Our magical safety advisors want to analyze each site thoroughly before we remove anything else. If there are more of these portals, well, we need to know how to close them the right way." He glanced at Adam and the others. "You've proven you know how to handle that better than we do. I'll be in touch." An hour later, they stepped back onto the sidewalk outside the city hall, the warm glow of the street lamps falling over them like lazy fireflies. They were free to go home, but as they dispersed with tired goodbyes, there was an undercurrent of anticipation that lingered in the air. They had glimpsed something beyond, realms hidden behind layers of paint. They had seen that reality was not just the cracked plaster and dull brick of everyday city life. Adam headed to his apartment, still feeling the faint fizz of leftover magic in his fingertips. That night, lying in bed, the memory of shimmering gateways haunted him. He pictured those swirling green lights, the strange robed being, and the monstrous shapes on the other side. His pulse raced as he realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. This was only the beginning. He and his team had scrubbed away the unknown, but in doing so, they'd discovered that beyond every painted wall, there might be another door. And who was to say they had closed them all? Tomorrow, the city manager might call again, ready to send them beyond the next swirling mural, ready to breach more worlds. And Adam, exhausted yet strangely exhilarated, knew he would pick up the phone. Because once you've glimpsed what lies behind the paint, there is no going back.